Hi, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Northern Affinity live video. As always, we're on various different social media channels today, so across LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So if you are on there watching this live, please feel free to join in, ask any questions or any comments you've got. We'd love to hear that. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Gary today from Chequered Flag Motorsport, as you can see on the screen. And what we're going to talk about is his business and essentially motorsport meeting charity and the kind of story behind that and the really interesting, exciting things you do. It's when I first heard about the things that Gary's doing, I think it's fantastic. So and I'm sure you'll all find a lot of benefit from hearing about that. Like I said, if you've got any questions or anything for us as we go through, please let us know. For those people who will be watching, I know a lot of people do watch this after the live event on the various channels. Again, if you've got any questions about it, please feel free to contact us, and I can put those to Gary or to myself if it is for me, and we're happy to take those questions at any point. So move on, and I'll hand it over to yourself. If you want to kind of introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what Chequered Flag Motorsport is.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Michael. And good afternoon, everybody else. And for those of you who are live, thank you for giving up your time in the sunshine to come and listen to me. My name is Gary Booth, as Michael introduced me. I am the founder and director of an organisation called Chequered Flag Motorsport. Chequered Flag Motorsport is a not-for-profit community interest company. That means anything we do, in this particular case, we're looking at raising funds for charity through the use of motorsport-themed events. Goes to those charities and is not to pay myself as a director or anybody else or to go as a profit for the organisation. During 2008, well, going back even further than that, back in 1984, going back an awful long way there, not hopefully giving away my age too much, I am a stroke survivor. I suffered a stroke in 1984, from which I consider myself one of the fortunate ones that I made probably something like a 95% physical recovery. I was left, however, due to the way that stroke recovery was treated at that point in time, with the emphasis very much on the physical rather than the mental, I was left with an awful lot of residual mental aspects that I still suffer with, such as ongoing fatigue, cognitive issues, things such as that. As a result of that experience, I had always wanted to do some formal fundraising, ideally for stroke-related charities or organisations because of my personal experience. Because I'm not a particularly adventurous person, I didn't want to start throwing myself out of aeroplanes or leaping off cliffs or tying bits of wood to my feet and skiing down mountains. That definitely wasn't something that was for me. During 2018, I revisited this particular idea as a result of having to wait for 2 bouts of spinal surgery and feeling very, very low and starting to move into, I'm honest to say, quite serious bouts of depression as a result of that particular illness and not being able to work. The thing that kept me going during that period of time was revisiting this idea of doing some formal fundraising and the formation of Chequered Flag Motorsport. At that point in time, I had no real idea what it would look like, how I was going to do that. It was just an idea that I started to bounce around in 2018. Moving on very quickly to 2019, and I had access to a professional racing simulator, similar to the ones that Formula One drivers use, that is all singing, all dancing. And probably like most people seeing something like that firsthand, I was absolutely blown away by it, particularly being a lover of motorsport in all its forms. I came away from there and thought, wow, this is great. This is something that would enable me to combine my love of fundraising and also my love of motorsport. There must be somebody somewhere who could do something for me like this, but on a smaller scale, so as I could take it round to various events. My idea being that I would ideally have a simulator facility that I could use at business networking type events to raise funds for the charities that I wanted to work with. After an awful lot of investigating, I finally found that the simulators that have been common during lockdown, weren't as common or as frequently known back in 2019. And I managed to do a deal with a company and actually purchased a very high-end racing simulator that Chequered Flag Motorsport now currently uses. And that is a piece of kit that has a very powerful computer, runs a 49-inch curved monitor, has force feedback steering wheels and force feedback pedals. So it's not, as somebody once described to me, a PlayStation 4 wheel attached to a kitchen table. It's something, I'm afraid, that's much, much more higher quality and gives a more realistic experience. Although having said that, and I will be honest from the outset, any simulator, whether that's a Formula One simulator costing multi-millions of pounds or something down to a PlayStation 4, will not replicate the experience of that you'll get from being actually in a racing car. However, we try to get as close as possible. So the idea was to use that excitement, entertainment, adrenaline rush, and competitive element that you get in competing in motorsport and bring that to a business environment and combining motorsport and charity. So what we essentially do is we will take our simulator to events, and that can be a charity who asks us to go and run an event for them. It can be a corporate entity, a business who says we'd like to do something different, either for our staff or for our customers, or as a promotional event for our products, services, or ourselves as a company. Will you come along and do it? Now, at the moment, we don't charge to go along and do that. We run our competition, which is essentially a fastest lap competition, and we have a Top Gear style leaderboard, which we stick there in a prominent position, and we say to people, come and have a go on this track in this particular car and see how fast you can go around this circuit. And we then put the times up on the leaderboard. That introduces an element of competition, and all we do is say to people, if you want to come and sit in this simulator and have a go at winning this prize, and I'll go into the prizes in a minute, then all we ask is, as you've come to the event free of charge, that you make a minimum donation to whichever particular charity or good cause we're actually working with at that particular event. And that's how we raise the funds for our charity. Now, to entice people to come along and have a go on the simulator and take part in the competition and make a donation, I have been fortunate that since starting, I do have some very good links that I've developed within the motorsport arena. That enables me to give prizes, as an example, such as we've got race cars off alloy wheels off race cars that have been made into coffee tables, for example, that are a nice little piece of decoration for somebody. We do obviously have signed merchandise and memorabilia. I do have the gear cogs off a Formula One Renault that have been made into clocks. All sorts of silly things like that we have. I have a couple of race suits that are up behind me. I don't know if it's possible to see them. One which is our own checkered flag one, and one which is a Lamborghini race suit, a Lamborghini GT race suit. On from that, we then also have access to professional race simulators, as well as our own, so as people can experience a higher level of simulator experience. We do also, through some of the drivers that we work with, we are able to offer track days with one-to-one driver coaching. We are also in the fortunate position that some of the teams we work with will offer us space on their race cars, so as if a winner of a competition happens to have a business of their own, we can put their corporate logo on a race car. And those race cars, this isn't just somebody racing around a field. Some of these drivers and teams that we're working with actually feature on race series that are featured on TV. We are working with a few of the teams in Formula One, although I can't guarantee that you will see your logo on a Formula One car anytime in the near future. It is something that we are working on.
So can I have the Northern Affinity on the Ferrari Formula One car?
I'll work on it. I'll work on it. Whether the Italians would want Northern Affinity or even understand what Northern Affinity, we might have to work a little bit on, Michael, but I'm sure we'll be able to try work something. So there are all sorts of opportunities there that hopefully people will think are attractive enough to come and have a go at. One of the things I wanted to do from the outset is I wanted to approach fundraising in a different manner and move away from the traditional euphemistic rattle a bucket in front of somebody and rely on somebody's conscience to make a donation to charity. I wanted that to be secondary, and I wanted them to be paying effectively for having a good time at an event that featured a checkered flag motorsport simulator, that they were having a good time, good experience, meeting people in a more relaxed social environment, and that the contribution they were making to charity came about more as a secondary afterthought and not the primary thought. That was where my emphasis lay at the outset. I've been very fortunate that some of the charities I'm now working with, I started off working with Different Strokes, which is obviously a national stroke charity, again, from as a result of my own personal experience. Since starting that journey back in 2019, I'm now fortunate that I work with organisations such as Dementia UK, Autism UK. We also work with Mind. I work with Sheffield-based charities such as Paces and Support Dogs, who some of the people out there in the Sheffield area may well have heard of and know. I also work with Wakefield Street Kitchen and Rainbow Baby Bank, that are very much local Wakefield and Dewsbury organisations supporting people who suffered during COVID and lockdown in particular. and an awful lot of mental health organisations that have appeared and gained in interest during, obviously, again during the lockdown period. I try it. One of the things I was talking to Michael about before we came on air was how, for me, as an organisation, we have exploded over the last 15 months or so. That it's becoming difficult for me to handle everything. Now, my nature is, if a charity approaches me, I am the sort of person who I like to say, yes, of course, I will help you. What I am unfortunately now having to recognise and realise is, as much as I want to help everybody, it's just physically impossible for me to, and I am along the way having to be a little bit more selective in who I help and support. So that's a little bit about my journey when I came from. Moving forward, in the last couple of months, I have been doing an awful lot of work with the amputee community as a result of meeting an amputee through a mutual friend. This particular person has great presence on social media, and his philosophy is very much, I lost a limb, not my life. And he now runs boot camps for fellow amputees to give them that motivation to carry on with their life, and that despite what they've been through, there are still opportunities out there. I was very, very taken with this particular person, and a lot of what he went through I could relate to from my own stroke experience. And it definitely gave me a boost and a lift. I wanted to do something for him because he was the sort of person who was always doing fundraising, wanting to send people on his boot camps. And just as a friend, I just wanted to do something for him. And because I have access to all these professional simulators, I happened to say to him, and I know he likes his motorsport, is it something you'd like to do? Would you like to go and try out a simulator? And he said, I'd love that. And we went, and he absolutely loved it. And he came away and he said, Gary, what I'd really love is I would be over the moon if you could get me behind the wheel of a proper race car. He said, but just before I had my leg off, I should have been going on one of the supercar track days, that sort of experience where you get to drive a Lamborghini or Ferrari or something like that. And he said, but since I had my leg amputated, they won't let me do it. So he said, if you could get me behind the wheel of a race car, he said, that would make everything positive for me. So being the sort of person I am, and having built up my motorsport contacts, it's something that I went out to try do. And there are some organisations and individuals within motorsport who hold themselves up as being the flag bearers of disability motorsport, or the minority groups within motorsport, and essentially market themselves and push themselves forward as being these sorts of individuals and organisations. To say I was disappointed at the response I got would be very much an understatement from these people. And it left a very, very bad taste in my mouth, if I'm perfectly honest. And I refused to accept it. I'm the sort of person who thinks we've got one world, and it's a world that's there for everybody. You may have a disability, you may have an illness, you may have some sort of problem that prevents you from doing things, but ultimately everybody, particularly my experience with the amputee community, which up until that point I hadn't really had any dealings with, all they want is the same or similar opportunities to everybody else, and the opportunity to experience and to prove that, given the opportunity, they can do something same as a normal person. So it was something that I took on board myself and thought, right, I want to do this. I want to make, and I mentioned this because it shifted the emphasis a bit of Chequered Flag Motorsport away from just being a fundraiser to having a slightly different purpose. And that purpose has become to make motorsport inclusive to everybody. And I use, in its broadest sense, to the disability community, or the disabled community, whether that's a result of a mental or a physical disability. That could be somebody such as myself who had suffered mentally after stroke, including those people with autism, people with physical disabilities as a result of any illness. My aim is to make motorsport inclusive to everybody. Now, that can be at its simplest level. I've been working with some of the Formula One teams who have their own museums, and I'm talking about here a teams such as Williams, Red Bull, who have both welcomed or potentially going to welcome me with open arms to take groups of people. So it could quite be at its lowest level. It's the opportunity to give people who have a disability, and once again, I say I use disability in its widest sense there, give people such as that the opportunity to sample a Formula One museum firsthand. Also, there's possibility of Formula One factory tours, and then I have a range moving through then to trying out my simulator, to trying out a professional simulator, to maybe experiencing fast passenger laps, to moving the way through, because I've been doing some research myself on hand controls to enable people with physical disabilities to drive race cars. So it may well be that we're able to offer people with physical disabilities the opportunity to drive race cars around a racetrack. And the ultimate at the moment that I was busy working on over the weekend with a racing team is to actually run our own scholarship program to offer a disabled person a fully funded race drive for a season in a club championship.
Brilliant. I have to say, I mean, I imagine I'm speaking for anyone who's watching this. It's inspirational. It's fantastic the work you're doing. It's so many different things, so many different areas that you're covering there. It's brilliant, and I think I don't know what else to say about it. I think it's just fantastic the work you're doing on that. I mean, I'd love to know more about kind of when people get the simulator and you turn up at an event.
Yep.
They may expect it or they may not. Obviously, I guess everyone's different. Kind of what the reaction is, how people react when they see this as, like you said, it's something a little bit different to maybe what you would expect when you normally turn up to an event.
I think the first expectation of people is when you say simulator, people assume it's very much a gaming experience that you would get with a PlayStation 4. And just to give you an indication, if I had gone out and bought the piece of kit that I've got retail off the shelf, it would have cost me over £20,000. That's just for the equipment that I've got. So it's definitely a step above, if not a few steps above, a PlayStation 4. As a result of that, you actually get to sense the force through the steering wheel. If you go over a bump, for example, on the track, because all the tracks on the software are digitally get my teeth in, digitally reproduced. So you feel you sense every bump, every curb, every corner on there, and you feel that through the steering wheel. And there's resistance on the pedals as well. So you are actually getting some form of feedback while you are actually driving. One of the other elements that I do have on the software that I have that some of the corporates I've worked with, and indeed some of the charities I've worked with, find very, very exciting, is the facility to incorporate a corporate logo on any of the race cars that are used during a particular event. So, for example, if I'm working with Michael and Michael says to me, we want to have a Northern Affinity event and I'd like to use a Porsche 911 around Monaco, then I could make it so as that Porsche lever going around Monaco is logoed up with Northern Affinity branding. Again, just something a bit different, but just something that corporates particularly like to see on a race car.
Oh, absolutely. No, I can imagine. Yes, anything that's a bit different. I think that the world are going into after we're all starting to hopefully come out a bit in the next few weeks and months, and I think when it comes to kind of business or any kind of events, actually, kind of the whole well-being thing is obviously becoming a bigger news in the last year or so, quite rightly, and will continue to do so. Things like this can help and can contribute to that. Something a bit different, something that brings people together for, quite frankly, a bit of fun. It's really, really important, I think.
It's as I said, the response I've had in the 15 months, when I started this, I didn't know what reaction I'd get. I invested my own money in this piece of kit and it could have fallen flat on its face. I had no real indication as to whether charities would think, yes, this is a good idea, let's use this guy and raise some funds, or whether people would say, no, we don't want to do this. And initially it was that support I got from within the motorsport community at all levels. I have been, it's a little bit of a funny story to me. Well, to me in some ways, I obviously have a presence on social media, primarily through LinkedIn, as well as other outlets. And I received an email from a 14-year-old lad one day who said, hello, my name's Kyan. I'm a professional kart racing driver. I'd like to be an ambassador, please, for Chequered Flag Motorsport. And I read this email and I thought, there were other details in it. And I thought, for a 14-year-old boy, this lad has been very eloquent and shown a great deal of ambition and a great deal of positivity in approaching me to do this. I have to say, at that point in time, I didn't really know what he meant by, can I be an ambassador for Chequered Flag Motorsport? So I went back to him and said, thank you for your email, etc., etc., etc. Really don't know what you mean by being an ambassador for Chequered Flag Motorsport. If you're somebody starting out in motorsport and are looking for a sponsor, then with the best will in the world, that's not me. I'm not in a position where I can be funding somebody's racing hobby. My organisation is all about generating funds, not passing them out. To cut a long story short, his father phoned me up and I had a long chat with his father, and he said, for us, it's not about having you pay us money as a sponsor. It's about us being seen both by our sponsors and by other people to be doing something positive. And we love what you're trying to do and the whole message and ethos behind Chequered Flag Motorsport. And if we can share your social media and you can share ours, and we can increase our reach as a result of that through doing something good that you're doing, then we'd love to be associated with it. So essentially, that's how my first ambassador came on board, as a young karting protege who is very keen to get much further in his career, and is using Chequered Flag Motorsport in an ambassadorial role to promote himself via social media through being linked with us. And this particular guy, during lockdown, he started doing car valeting, a step up from the olden days of go out with your sponge and a bucket and wash cars. What he actually said to me was, he set this up as a business during lockdown at 14 years old, because he said, I realised that people within my area where he lives, which is in the Midlands, were not getting the cars washed because all the traditional car wash arenas had obviously had to close down. So he said, I just offered to go to people's homes, socially distance, wash their car outside, valet it, give it a little bit above the old traditional sponge and bucket treatment. And he said, I'm going to do that for a month, or for the month in question. He said, I'm going to do that, and any money I make, I will pass over to one of your charities that you, or for you to pass on to one of your charities. So I thought, oh, a couple of quid. And this particular lad at 14 years old, bearing in mind he needs every penny he can get to fund his own kart racing, actually raised and sent over to me £734 in the course of a month, just through doing that. And for me, it's about Chequered Flag Motorsport impacts upon people in that way, that they in turn want to do positive things and help people less fortunate than themselves. As I said at the outset, and it might sound corny to some people, it's one world, and we're all entitled to live it. And that's, I'm afraid, where my philosophy starts and ends on a lot of what I do.
Oh, I think that's a great message, and I think it's a fantastic story. And well done to that lad. I think that's it's brilliant. Like I said, it's inspiring to hear these things. That there's been a lot of people do a lot of good stuff in the last year or so, and I think hopefully a lot continue. So that's great to hear. I mean, just kind of final question for me, really, Gary. If people want to find out a little bit more about what you do and contact you, where's the best places to do that?
Chequered Flag does have a website. It's www.checkeredflagmotorsport.uk. I am also on LinkedIn, both personally and as Chequered Flag Motorsport CIC. More than happy for people to contact me either by those routes. My telephone number is on the website and also on my LinkedIn pages. I'm more than happy for people, if they want to contact me by telephone, more than happy to speak to anybody. As I say, whether that's somebody who has an interest in fundraising, somebody from the charity world who may want to work with us from a fundraising perspective, or perhaps more importantly, you are a business who may want to do something a little bit different in terms of an event, either for your staff, as I say, or to promote your product or service or yourselves as a company. Give us a try. No cost to yourselves. We will come along. We will run the event. We will bring everything that's required. We'll bring some great prizes. Hopefully, you can all have some great competition and a bit of fun and excitement in a more social environment.
Brilliant. I think that's a great way to finish that. So, thank you for the work you're doing. I think it's brilliant, and obviously, thank you for your time today. I mean, if anyone for whatever reason can't find the website, come to me at Northern Affinity. We have all those details as well. So, more than happy to point you in the right direction. So yeah, just finally for me, thank you for your time, and thanks for everyone for watching. I think it's fantastic the work you do, and I'm sure a lot of people have been very very inspired by it all.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite.
No,
and thank you everybody for listening.
Have a good day, guys.